They didn't disrespect you because you deserved it. They did it because they thought you wouldn't know how to respond. That's their real calculation. Not whether they're right, but whether you'll stay quiet, flinch, or fold. Let's make something clear. Rudeness is not a show of power. It's a confession of insecurity. And when you know how to respond, not with rage, but with precision, you don't just shut it down. You make them regret trying. Rude people are everywhere. At work, they hide behind fake authority. On social media, they spit venom behind screens. In families, they twist tradition into entitlement. Some do it loudly, some do it with a smirk. Either way, the tactic is the same. Provoke you into losing your center, so they can feel bigger for a moment. Stoic philosophy dismantles that trap. It teaches us not to react like animals, but to respond like sovereigns. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be free. And freedom begins the moment you realize no one can insult you without your consent. That's what this video is about. How to use calm, cutting precision when you're disrespected. Not to play their game, but to end it. You'll learn how to answer in a way that protects your peace while forcing the other person to sit with the weight of their behavior. No yelling, no drama, just control. Because there's power in saying less. In looking someone in the eye, unshaken, and making them feel the full, awkward silence of their failed attempt to break you. There's power in knowing your value so completely that no stranger, no boss, no so-called friend can twist it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That means their disrespect is not your burden, unless you carry it. So drop it. Let them throw their tantrums in peace. Let them hurl their passive aggression, their sarcasm, their ego-fueled slaps in the face. You won't flinch. You won't explain yourself. You'll respond, not for revenge, but to reclaim space. And you'll do it with the tools we're about to cover. If you've ever walked away from a disrespectful encounter, thinking, "I should have said something," this is your moment to fix that. Not by fighting fire with fire, but with clarity, timing, and composure that leaves the other person stunned. If this message hits home, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic, where we turn chaos into clarity and weakness into discipline. In the comments below, drop your story or anchor your mindset with this phrase: "I don't react, I decide." Now let's get into the strategies that don't just protect your dignity, they make them wish they'd picked someone else. Number 1, strike back with your eyes, not your words. You don't need a clever comeback to destroy someone's arrogance. You need presence, a steady, silent, soul-searching stare, the kind that makes people squirm, not because you raised your voice, but because you didn't have to. In the Stoic tradition, strength isn't loud, it's still. Lucius Annaeus Seneca once observed, "A great mind is above insults." But what he didn't say outright is that a great mind, when insulted, doesn't retreat, it watches. Intently. Like a man who sees the storm coming and doesn't flinch, because he knows he's the mountain, not the tree. When someone is rude, they expect pushback, or panic, or polite submission. What they don't expect and can't tolerate is a gaze that says, without a single word, "I see exactly what you're doing and it doesn't scare me." Take Mark, 41, a mechanic from Tulsa. Hardworking, calm, keeps to himself. One afternoon, a customer storms into the shop, slams a set of keys on the counter and barks, "You idiot, scratched my fender." No hello, no question, just accusation. The younger techs start fidgeting. Mark, wiping grease from his hands, walks over, looks the man in the eye, no blink, no smile, no rush, and simply stares. Not angrily, just steady, centered, unmoved. The room goes quiet. 10 seconds pass. The customer's voice cracks a little. "Well, what do you have to say?" Mark leans forward slowly and replies, "I have plenty to say. I'm just deciding whether it's worth saying to someone who showed up like this." The customer backs off. Not because of the words, but because of the space. That electric silence. That unshakable gaze that made him realize he wasn't in control anymore. This is not mysticism, it's psychology. A 2011 study from the University of Freiburg found that people confronted with steady, neutral eye contact in a conflict situation are more likely to de-escalate than those met with verbal rebuttal. Why? Because eye contact activates a primal part of the brain, the amygdala. It signals dominance, awareness, and most importantly, attunement. It says, "I see you, all of you, and I'm not running." The narcissist, the bully, the sarcastic know-it-all, they thrive on emotional chaos. They feed on reactions. When you meet them with controlled silence and a gaze that refuses to bow, you don't just disrupt their performance, you break the fourth wall. You let them see that you see through them, and that is unbearable. And don't confuse this with intimidation. This isn't a stare down in a bar fight. This is philosophical posture. It's you holding space the way a Stoic holds a line in battle, not to conquer the other person, but to remain unconquered yourself. The trick is to let your gaze do the talking. Hold their eyes for 2 seconds longer than what's comfortable. Keep your face still, no smirk, no frown, just clean, unreadable clarity. Tilt your head slightly if needed. Not in challenge, but curiosity, as if to say, is this really who you want to be today? Want to practice? Stand in front of a mirror at home for 1 minute. Not to admire yourself, to test yourself. Hold your own gaze. Think about someone who tried to diminish you with words. Then imagine looking at them without fear, without need, without apology. That's what they can't handle. Someone who doesn't seek approval or show submission. Next time you're in a meeting and someone throws a passive-aggressive jab your way, don't reply instantly. Pause. Look. Let them feel the weight of their own words bouncing in your silence. Let them fill the void with their own insecurity. It will come. Narcissists hate silence because it's the only mirror that doesn't lie. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Add to that, and to make him wonder why you didn't flinch, because nothing haunts a rude person more than realizing they had no impact, no sway, no victory. Just your eyes, calm and unblinking, asking silently, "Was that supposed to impress me?" You don't need to insult them. You don't need to argue. You need to remain fully, clearly. And when you leave the room, let them sit in what they tried to throw and failed. Your silence, your gaze, your unmoved presence, these aren't passive. They are surgical. They say what no angry words ever could. And they never forget it. Number 2, thanks for the feedback. Deliver the cold smile like a knife in a velvet case. There's an art to making someone regret their disrespect without giving them the satisfaction of knowing they got under your skin. And few tools are sharper, finer, deadlier than a well-timed cold thanks for the feedback. It sounds polite, civilized, even mature. But when used right, it slices like piano wire. Because beneath those 4 words is the real message. Your opinion is noted, filed under irrelevant, and dismissed without ceremony. It's not just a response, it's a mirror, polished so cleanly that they see for a split second just how small their attempt at power really was. Enter Tyler, 36, a restaurant manager in Boston. He runs a tight ship. One night during a staff meeting, a junior employee with a chip on his shoulder throws out a snide remark. "Maybe if we had better management, we wouldn't be dealing with so many complaints." The room goes quiet. All eyes turn to Tyler. No scowl, no raised voice, just a pause, and then, "Thanks for the feedback." A measured smile, calm eyes. Then he moves on. Later, that same employee came up, half defensive, half curious. "You're not mad?" Tyler shrugged. "I heard you. I just didn't think it needed a response." That kid never took a shot at him again, because he wasn't ignored. He was outclassed. That's the Stoic way. You don't swing every time someone throws shade. You let their attempt land in silence, then brush it off like dust from your coat. Because a calm man standing tall after an insult is louder than 10 men yelling back. This phrase, "thanks for the feedback," is a rhetorical decoy. On the surface, it looks like you're receiving, but in truth, you're deflecting. The Stoic philosopher Hierocles spoke often about the power of self-containment. His model of the concentric circles of concern reminds us to protect the core, our reason, our identity, by not allowing every outer voice to pierce it. In other words, you can hear everything, but you don't have to absorb any of it. That's what this phrase does. It keeps your identity sealed. It says, "I heard your noise. It's just not entering the part of me that matters." Let's put it another way. Imagine you're a fortress. Someone walks up, throws a rock at your wall, and yells, "That's a stupid wall." You don't send archers. You don't open the gate. You nod from the tower and say, "Thanks for the feedback." Then you disappear behind the parapets, untouched. This isn't passive aggression. It's dominance disguised as diplomacy. It tells the rude person they are so beneath you in emotional rank that you're willing to gift wrap their insult and send it back with a thank you note. And that stings more than any insult you could have crafted. So how do you do this in real life without sounding robotic? First, practice tone. The key is to say it neutrally, neither sarcastic nor submissive, just level. The kind of tone you'd use if someone told you the weather. Thanks for the feedback. Then stop. Do not explain. Do not elaborate. Silence after this phrase is what gives it weight. Second, use it selectively. This line works best when the insult is veiled as a suggestion or delivered in a public setting. When someone tries to make a subtle power move at your expense, this phrase kills it instantly. Third, pair it with a look, not smug, not wounded. Just curious, like you're watching a street performer fail a trick. You're not offended, you're just underwhelmed. This technique is even more effective because it short-circuits the game. Rude people are often fishing for your temper, for your defense, for your surrender. They want you to react so they can say, "Look how emotional you are." But when you respond with, "Thanks for the feedback," you flip the script. Now they're scrambling to reclaim the stage. Seneca once wrote, "No man is hurt but by himself." By using this phrase, you remind yourself that dignity isn't something you beg for, it's something you guard. You don't owe explanations to people who throw shade instead of light. And you certainly don't give them the reward of reaction. The beauty of this line is that it works across contexts. At work, it neutralizes office politics. At home, it subtly reminds passive-aggressive relatives that you're not their emotional sponge. Online, it's a digital mic drop. And the best part? You never have to raise your voice. Because the person who stays calm, who smiles while others try to poke the bear, that's the person who wins. Remember, rude people thrive in messy arenas. But the Stoic doesn't wrestle in the mud. He walks past the insult, makes a note, and keeps building. So next time someone delivers an insult wrapped in advice, don't unpack it, hand it back. With a smile, with composure, with just 4 words, "Thanks for the feedback," and let them sit with the sound of their own failure. Number 3, respond like they just mentioned the weather. You want to disarm a rude person? Make them feel boring. Not offensive, not powerful, just unremarkable. Because deep down, that's what they fear the most. Not being hated, but being dismissed. Imagine this. Someone spits sarcasm your way, hoping to ignite a scene. They've loaded the insult, pulled the trigger, and they're waiting for your face to twitch, your ego to flare, your voice to rise. But instead, you respond with a flat, almost distracted, "Oh, all right." Maybe you nod a little, maybe you check your watch, and then you go on with your life, as if they'd just told you it might rain later. You didn't ignore them. That's too obvious. You acknowledged them. But in the exact same way you'd acknowledge an elevator ding or a passing car horn, a blip in the background noise of your actual existence. That's when it hits them. Not only did their insult not land, it didn't even register as meaningful. This isn't just social judo. It's high stoicism in motion. As Epictetus said, when someone irritates you, realize that it's your own response which is irritating you. That means your freedom begins where your reactivity ends. And there's no reaction quieter or sharper than indifference. Let's look at Denise, a 45-year-old marketing executive from Phoenix. Known for her calm under pressure, she once found herself in a client meeting where a junior partner from another firm, trying to prove himself, quipped, "Well, maybe if we had better briefs from your team, we wouldn't have to spend so much time cleaning up." It was a power play. Room full of people, high stakes. Denise didn't blink. She looked at him with the same energy she might give a printer jam. "Noted," she said, and turned to the next slide. 5 seconds of silence followed, not because of what he said, but because of how small it looked next to her response. By treating his jab like noise, she exposed its lack of weight. He didn't speak again for the rest of the hour. This is the essence of the technique. You don't fight disrespect, you starve it. Rudeness feeds on recognition. When you give it nothing, not defense, not offense, just neutrality, it withers. And the person who delivered it, left holding their own mess alone. The psychology behind this is real. According to a study in social psychological and personality science, people who maintain emotional detachment in the face of provocation are perceived as more competent and dominant than those who respond with anger or sarcasm. In short, being unshaken makes you the alpha without ever raising your voice. Here's how to put this into practice. Step 1. Rehearse emotional neutrality, not fake niceness, emotional flatline. Say oh or or I see in the mirror until it sounds natural, not dismissive. You're not being snide, you're being unmoved. Step 2. Manage your body language. No crossed arms, no raised eyebrows. Keep your shoulders relaxed, your breathing even. If possible, shift attention away. Look at your phone, a document, a clock on the wall. Let them feel how little space they take up in your internal world. Step 3. Exit the moment swiftly. After your brief, dull acknowledgement, pivot the topic. Change rooms, re-engage with someone else. Nothing says you're irrelevant louder than not giving a follow-up. Think of this move as a thermostat. You don't rise to match their heat, you reset the room. They came to provoke a storm. You handed them a breeze. It's like trying to start a bar fight and realizing your opponent's made of stone. No fun, no win. And beneath this whole approach is a deeper Stoic truth. You choose what has power over you, not the other way around. When someone hurls disrespect and you respond as if they mentioned it's a bit cloudy today, you're not ignoring reality. You're reframing it. You're declaring, your attempt to shake me is beneath my emotional threshold. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Let them burn with frustration. Let them boil in their need to provoke. You're already past it. Already in the next hour, next task, next thought. That's how you win without fighting. That's how you turn a rude attack into background noise. So next time someone throws a jab, don't jab back. Don't flare up. Just glance, nod, and say, all right, and keep walking. You'll leave them standing in the ashes of their own performance, wondering why it didn't land. Because when you react like they just told you the sky's overcast, they realize something painful. They don't matter nearly as much as they hoped they did. Number 4. Don't see an enemy. See an unfinished child. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct may be to meet them where they stand. Face to face, ego to ego, insult for insult. But Stoicism offers a higher perch, a cleaner view. What if instead of seeing a rival, you saw a child? Not an innocent child. A tantrum-throwing, emotionally undercooked, developmentally delayed version of adulthood. A body grown tall, but a mind still in the shallow end. That shift doesn't just preserve your peace, it restores your position. Because suddenly, you're not in a brawl, you're in observation mode. They're not a threat, they're a case study. This isn't condescension, it's clarity. The person who lashes out at you with rudeness, who uses sarcasm as a shield or aggression as a crutch, isn't powerful. They're primitive. And the moment you start thinking, this person's reactions are a mirror of their wounds, not a reflection of my worth, everything changes. Let's look at Caleb, 52, a real estate consultant in Denver. He attends a networking event. During a group conversation, a younger competitor, obviously insecure, keeps cutting Caleb off mid-sentence. Well, I'm sure that used to work in your day, he says with a grin, loud enough for the group to laugh uncomfortably. The kind of dig that's meant to provoke, to make Caleb bite. But Caleb doesn't take the bait. He doesn't glare. He doesn't defend his track record. He just smiles softly, nods, and replies, I remember when I needed to say things like that to feel seen. You'll grow out of it. You could have heard a pin drop. Because with just one sentence, Caleb did what Stoicism does best. He disarmed without descending. He didn't crush the guy. He illuminated him, not as a threat, but as a boy in a man's suit. This tactic is more than cleverness. It's psychological truth. Neuroscience has shown that the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for regulation, empathy, and reflection, continues developing well into adulthood. Many people never fully engage it. They stay emotionally impulsive, like toddlers who never learn to use their words. When they're rude, it's not because they're strong, it's because they've never matured past the reflex. So what do you do with that knowledge? First, reframe their behavior. The next time someone snaps at you, interrupts, mocks, or tries to dominate, pause. In your mind, label what's happening not as a challenge, but as a symptom. This is a person who hasn't learned a better way to cope with their own discomfort. That reframing protects you from personalization, because it's not about you. It never was. Second, drop the emotional rope. You don't need to win an argument with a child who's flailing. You need to stay calm enough to let them wear themselves out while you remain unmoved. Third, if you must respond, keep it sparse, grounded, and dignified. Try, I'm not here to argue. I hope your day gets better. That's it. Delivered calmly, without sarcasm. The point isn't to look morally superior, it's to stay emotionally sovereign. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus once said, "The highest good is a mind trained in self-control and guided by reason. Not guided by ego, not dragged into playground politics. Guided, directed, intact." This perspective doesn't just help you walk away clean, it builds emotional immunity. Because the more you train your brain to recognize childishness instead of evil, dysfunction instead of threat, the less room you give resentment to grow. Think of it like this. You're walking through a public park. A 5-year-old screams you're stupid at a duck. Do you stop and argue? No. You keep walking. Because the child doesn't have the tools to express frustration with grace. The duck doesn't care. And you're too grown to get involved. That's the mental stance you adopt when facing an adult who acts like a wounded adolescent. You don't lower your standards, you hold your frame. And slowly, the game ends. Because the rude person doesn't get what they came for. Your reaction, your status, your surrender. All they're left with is their noise, echoing back at them in a room where no one's playing along. So when someone tries to drag you down into a contest of pride, don't meet them there. Rise above. And if you must look down, don't look with disdain, look with understanding. Then turn your attention back to what matters, your path, your growth, your peace. Because maturity doesn't flex, it recognizes immaturity and moves on. Number 5, ask a question that holds up a mirror. When someone throws rudeness your way, the natural urge is to push back, defend yourself, restore balance. But the Stoic doesn't restore balance through force. The Stoic restores it through presence, by stepping out of the game entirely and flipping the script with one simple move, a question. Not just any question. A mirror. "Are you okay?" said gently, not mockingly. Said with the quiet confidence of someone who sees through the noise. It sounds disarming, even caring, but under the surface it delivers a clean psychological punch. Why did you just speak to me like that? And what are you really projecting? Because people rarely show up rude without a reason. Their outburst is often the tip of an iceberg they've never learned to examine. And when you ask, "Are you okay?" not to comfort, but to confront, you stop being the target. You become the witness. You lift them out of their fantasy of control and hold them, suddenly, under the light. Let's look at Erin, 39, a software team lead in Portland. During a high-stakes code review, one of her peers, Mike, snaps at her suggestion. You'd know that if you paid attention the first time. Everyone in the room freezes. Erin doesn't flinch. She tilts her head slightly, meets his eyes and says softly, "Are you all right?" Not, "What's your problem?" Not, "Don't talk to me like that." Just a single, reflective question. Calm, grounded. It lands like a stone in water. Mike stammers, I'm just saying we already covered that." Erin nods. "Noted. But the way you said it, something feels off. You sure you're okay?" It was over. He deflated. Not humiliated, not crushed, just seen in a way that made rudeness impossible to maintain. Because now it wasn't about the topic. It was about him. This is the magic of the mirror. You interrupt the emotional script. Rude people often act from a place of assumed dominance. I'll say something cutting, they'll retreat or lash out, and I'll feel powerful. But when you calmly ask a question like, "Is everything all right with you today?" or "Rough morning?" you force them to hear their own tone, often for the first time. You gently hand them their reflection. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, "It is not he who reviles or strikes you who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting." In other words, don't assume their attack is about you. Most often, it's a signal of their own internal collapse. Your job is not to absorb that. Your job is to reveal it. A few things make this approach powerful. 1, it's non-defensive. You're not justifying anything. You're not retaliating. You're simply in control. That shift in tone often surprises the rude person into reevaluation. 2, it invites responsibility. A real question creates a pause. That pause invites them to notice themselves, sometimes for the first time. 3, it removes their frame. They expected a battle. You offered a mirror. Now the room sees them as the agitated one, not you. Practice this by slowing your response time. When someone crosses a line, take 2 seconds to breathe. Look at them. Not angrily, not smugly, just steadily. Then ask, "Is everything okay with you?" Not with sarcasm, with curiosity wrapped in iron. If that feels too personal, you can soften it. You seem tense. Want to try that again? That came out sharp. Are you all right? Do you talk like that to everyone today, or just me? Use humor if you must, but never from insecurity. From observation, from detachment, from your seat at the top of your own mountain. Remember, you are not obligated to play the role they cast you in. By asking a simple, sincere question, you switch the scene. Now they are the one being evaluated. And more often than not, that brief flicker of self-awareness is enough to shatter their act. Seneca once said, "He who does not know what the world is, does not know where he is. And he who does not know what he is, does not know what the world is." Rude people rarely know either. But your question, short, sharp, and grounded, can snap them back to themselves. And if it doesn't, then at least you know who you are. The one who kept your dignity intact, who responded with clarity, and who made their outburst feel as revealing as it was unnecessary. Number 6, don't clap back. Change your behavior. Some people think words are where the battle is, that to win you must outwit, outtalk, or outcut the rude person in front of you. But true power doesn't always respond with words. It responds with withdrawal. Not dramatic, not bitter, just clean, unmistakable distance. You don't yell, you don't explain, you just stop. Stop giving, stop trusting, stop showing up the way you used to. And suddenly, the person who disrespected you starts to feel something far more uncomfortable than confrontation: your absence. See, rude people often rely on your continued participation. They count on the idea that you'll tolerate what they dish out because you're just nice like that, or you'll get over it, or worse, you won't dare change. They mistake your silence for softness. That's where you flip the script, not with a comeback, but with cold clarity that shows up in your next action. Take Alan, 47, a logistics manager in Dallas. For months, he covered for his colleague Tony, fixing reports, cleaning up miscommunications, running interference with clients. Then one day, in front of the whole team, Tony throws him under the bus for a late shipment, saying, "Well, maybe if Alan spent less time chatting and more time working, we'd hit deadlines." Alan didn't respond, didn't make a scene. He just nodded once. The next week, Alan stopped picking up Tony's calls. No more behind-the-scenes fixes, no late-night bailouts. He answered emails with the bare minimum. When Tony made a joke in the break room, Alan didn't laugh. He barely looked up. Tony felt it. Not instantly, but inevitably. That change in temperature, that drop in support. That vacuum where Alan's help used to be. No speech, no threat, just the consequences moving in like winter. This is the Stoic response at its highest form: discipline over reaction. Epictetus wrote, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. But removing your effort, that's not provocation, that's power. When someone shows you disrespect, you don't owe them a defense, but you owe yourself a recalibration. If someone betrays your trust, you don't need to scream. You just stop extending trust. If they belittle your help, you don't argue for your worth, you stop helping. If they mock your kindness, you don't toughen up to impress them, you simply walk away with your kindness still intact, but no longer available to them." This isn't about being petty. This is about being precise, controlled, strategic. Because every time you keep showing up the same after being disrespected, you teach them that their behavior has no cost, that they can disrespect you and still get the full version of you, the generous you, the reliable you, the present you. So here's your practice. Next time someone crosses the line, don't react. Just observe. Then ask yourself, what will I now do differently, not to hurt them, but to honor myself? Maybe you set new boundaries, maybe you give less access, maybe you simply respond slower with less warmth. Whatever it is, make the change visible. Not theatrical, just undeniable. And when they notice, and they will, they'll ask what's wrong. Don't explain. Let the silence speak. Let the new behavior speak. Let them walk through the cold room they created and figure out why it's no longer warm. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Rude people crave reaction, crave your energy, crave your continued attention. When you stop giving it, they feel their poverty. Not of material, but of influence. And there's no punishment more graceful than that. Let them feel your withdrawal like a shadow receding from their presence. Let your absence echo louder than any argument. Let the frost of your changed behavior remind them, Disrespect is expensive, and you no longer give discounts. Number 7. Offer the hand, not the hammer. There is a moment in every conflict where you're invited to step into the mud. Someone lashes out, their tone sharpens, their words bite, and everything in you tightens. Your heart says hit back, your pride says match their energy. But there's another option, the Stoic option. You don't strike, you don't shrink, you extend your hand, not in submission, but in strength. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do in the face of rudeness isn't to retaliate, but to lift the other person out of the chaos they've created. It sounds counterintuitive. Why help someone who just disrespected you? Why respond to heat with calm? The answer is simple. Because you want resolution, not escalation. And because most people who act rude aren't strong. They're drowning. They're overwhelmed by emotion, ego, or fear. They snap, not because they want to dominate you, but because they've lost control of themselves. You can be the one who doesn't lose control in return. Think of Lauren, 34, a nurse practitioner in Cleveland. One evening in the ER, a patient's husband began yelling at her, furious, frantic, irrational. His wife had been waiting for over an hour, and he wanted answers. "This is a disgrace. You people don't care at all." Most people would have snapped back. Lauren didn't. She took a breath, stepped forward, and said gently, "You sound really scared. I would be too if my partner were in pain this long. Let me see what I can do right now." The man froze. The heat in his eyes dulled, his breathing changed. He wasn't expecting kindness. And kindness, calm, grounded, confident kindness, won. That's not weakness, that's power, Stoic power. As Mazonius Rufus wrote, he who does not restrain his anger has no advantage over the person who provokes him. But more than that, he who can see beyond the provocation can lead the other person out of it. Because here's the truth, people often mirror what you project. If you return fire with fire, the room burns. If you return fire with water, someone has a chance to cool down. Let's shift the metaphor. Rude people in emotional crisis are like people trapped in a burning car. They're banging on the windows, screaming nonsense, heat all around them. You don't yell at them for being loud. You open the door. You pull them out. Not because you owe them grace, but because you are someone who operates above the fire. This doesn't mean you excuse chronic abuse or enable manipulation. But it does mean that in certain moments, especially in high-stakes relationships like partners, clients, or family, you can choose to respond to the wound, not just the weapon. If your partner lashes out over something small, let's say dinner plans, they might say, "You never think of me first," in a tone that drips with sarcasm. You could bite back. Or you could pause, breathe, and say, "That hurt a little to hear, but I think you're saying you feel unseen. Am I right?" That one line moves you from sparring partner to translator, from opponent to ally. You're not accepting the rudeness. You're cutting through it to the root. Here's how you can practice this in daily life. 1. Anchor in stillness before you respond. Take a full breath. This breaks the chain of reactivity and reminds your body that you're in control. Your calm is the first step out of the storm. 2. Listen for emotion behind the words. Most rudeness is clumsily expressed fear, frustration, or pain. Ask yourself, not what are they saying, but what are they trying to say badly? 3. Reflect back what you see, not what they said. Try phrases like, "You sound frustrated. Can we pause and get clear? That came off sharp. Want to try again? I'm hearing the emotion, but I want to understand the need underneath." 4. Offer a simple path forward. Don't debate their tone. Propose a next step. "Let's solve this. Here's what I can do right now." That sentence often neutralizes more anger than 10 arguments ever will. In doing this, you don't just de-escalate, you demonstrate emotional leadership. And people remember that. Even if they don't thank you in the moment, they remember who held the frame, who didn't match their worst energy, who didn't make it worse. And yes, there will be times when the person doesn't calm down, doesn't self-reflect, doesn't grow. That's okay. The goal is not to fix them. The goal is to not let their chaos shape your character. As Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change. But if they cannot, then I will still do what is right." You're not controlled by their tone. You're guided by your values. So the next time someone throws disrespect at you like a weapon, ask yourself, do they need punishment or perspective? And if you choose perspective, don't shout it, show it. Offer clarity instead of conflict. Offer calm instead of contempt. Offer the hand, not the hammer. That's the Stoic way. That's real strength. Conclusion. When you hold the frame, the fire burns itself out. Rude people don't win because they're smarter, or stronger, or braver. They win because you let them set the emotional temperature, and then you match it. You let them throw a spark, and you show up with gasoline. But what if, this time, you showed up with stone? What if instead of giving them a stage, you gave them silence? What if you met their heat not with heat, but with something far more unsettling? Composure. That's what Stoicism demands. Not cold detachment, but conscious choice. Not silence out of weakness, but restraint out of clarity. Because let's face it, most rude people aren't strategic. They're messy, loud, spilling insecurity and trying to drag you into the flood. When you react, you swim in their storm. When you stay still, you become the shore. They want to fluster you, provoke you, make you forget your own posture. But you, if you've listened this far, know better now. You know that rudeness only lands when it hits something soft, raw, and unguarded. And the guard isn't armor, it's awareness. So here's your final weapon. Not a sharper comeback, but a sharper sense of self. Don't fight the rude. Frame them. Let their outburst reveal them, not you. Let your response, or your lack of one, draw a quiet line in the sand. I'm not here to perform. I'm here to rule my own mind. Because in the end, your power isn't measured by how well you clap back. It's measured by how little anyone can pull you off center. As the Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus once said, "It is better to receive a blow than to give one, if giving it would make you base." Harsh words can't soil you unless you wrestle in the dirt to answer them. Let them swing, let them sulk, let them spit venom in all directions. You don't exist to absorb it, you exist to reflect what's true. And if they see themselves in that mirror, twitching, exposed, uncertain, that's their reckoning, not yours. So next time someone tests your patience, remember, you're not here to react, you're here to decide. Decide who you want to be. Decide what energy you allow into your space. Decide, with ruthless calm, to let their storm pass through you, like wind through a wall. If this message stirred something in you, share and subscribe to Victory Stoic, where we turn disrespect into discipline and chaos into clarity. In the comments, drop your story, or leave this line to anchor your mindset moving forward. I don't match chaos, I master myself. Thank you for watching. Thank you for standing in your power. And most of all, thank you for choosing reason over reaction. Now go out there and let them talk. You've got bigger things to hold than their noise.